The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the individual co-host and do not reflect the official policy or position of the Firearms Radio Network and or their employers. Viewer discretion is advised. This is especially true on our live shows.
Broadcast for shooters, hunters, and gun enthusiasts. This is the Firearms Radio Network. The bandwidth for this episode of This Week in Guns is sponsored by Patriot Patch Company. PatriotPatch.co.
Welcome to This Week in Guns. This show is brought to you by the Firearms Radio Network and Patriot Patch Company.
And this show offers commentary on the latest firearms industry news, information, and buzz. I'm your host, Sean Herron, and I get the extreme pleasure of introducing our guests tonight. First up, we've got veteran, Second Amendment advocate, professional rabble-rouser, and host of the Matter of Facts podcast, Bill Rabalais. Welcome back.
Thanks for having me, Sean.
Absolutely, man. Next up, pistol instructor, gun range consultant, and board member of Women's Campus Carry Advocacy Program Empowered, Jerah Hutchins. Welcome back to your second episode.
Thank you.
All right, so just real quick, Bill Rabalais, I got that one right? And Jerah Hutchins, I got that one right? I'm batting 1,000. What a time to be alive.
I'm telling you.
Welcome to the show, guys. Before we get started, I have to just talk about our awesome sponsors, advertisers. First up, we've got the Patriot Patch Company, and I would highly recommend if you hear my voice and you remember Jake's voice, but you're still awake, just go to patriotpatch.co and join their Patch of the Month Club. Get cool shirts, all kinds of awesome stuff. It's all available there at Patriot Patch Company, and they definitely support the Firearms Radio Network, especially This Week in Guns. So please go give them a visit. And next up, we've got Manticore Arms. They will be at the NRA annual meetings in Dallas, Texas in about 12 days. 10, 12 days, something like that, Jerah?
Oh, yeah.
It's coming up.
It's coming up. I mean, just next weekend.
Yeah. Are you ready?
I'm totally ready. I can't wait.
That's awesome.
It's one of my favorite times of the year.
Same. NRA annual meeting is my favorite thing that I go to every single year. We'll talk a little bit more about it later on in the show. But while you're there, visit Manticore Arms. And if you just can't wait, go to manticorearms.com and use coupon code TWG10 for all of your comfort accessories for pretty much just about any rifle that you can get. So go check them out. AKs. What was it? Avtomat Kalashnikov?
Yeah, that's right. I think you got it.
In the worst English Russian I can manage, yes.
Perfect. And they've got all that stuff for whatever AK you have, all at manticorearms.com. All right, let's get into the news here. So first off, we've got Broward County Sheriff faces vote of no confidence from his deputies, and I'll just briefly summarize this. We all saw Sheriff Scott Israel after the Parklands thing, just kind of having I don't know, it was a little bit of a public meltdown, thinking he's the best and talking about his amazing leadership. Well, now the Broward Sheriff...
Are you really not taking any responsibility for the multiple...
There we go. Now the Broward Sheriff's Office Deputies Association has decided to move forward with a vote of no confidence. And I think that's pretty awesome. Jerah, what do you think?
He's a Democrat, number one. We need to point that out. And not that all Democrats are bad, but I think that just historically and just from my perspective, Democratic leadership just fails all the time. And he could not have been a more enormous boob in taking care of this entire leadership or in this entire situation. And that is what has put his leadership in question. It comes from the top. And time again, interview after interview, he consistently does not want to take responsibility for what happened in Parkland. And I think it's sad. I think it's destructive. And this is also I think this is the first of its kind vote in his office, in the history of that town. And I'm all about getting him out of there. He has a history of not giving justice where justice is due. He gives criminals breaks. I think he's lazy, and I think he's a person that just believes his own BS. And we have no room for that.
Yeah, definitely. It's a culture of malfeasance that he seems to be perpetrating in his department there. Phil, what do you think?
I'm kind of surprised this requires a vote. I thought when you had, unanimous agreement, you could just forego the vote. But I guess, for procedural. The only thing that comes to my mind is, what is the potential outcome from this? Like, if the entire department says, well, we don't think you're doing your job, does he lose his job? Does anything happen? Does he just get a slap on the wrist? I mean, I hope this is more than just white knighting.
Well,
that's really what this boils down to.
I think the article said that he would be removed.
Don't threaten me with a good time.
I mean,
look, I'm gonna soapbox for just 2 seconds. But the first thing they beat into our heads when I was young and enlisted was, if you're in charge, it's always your fault. Mm-hmm. You don't get to say, when you're a leader, that's not my fault. It is your fault. If your people screwed up, if the procedure was wrong, if the materials weren't where they were supposed to be, if there was a screw up, it's your screw up. You own that and you fix it. But for this guy to just kind of shrug his shoulders and say, I didn't do it. Okay, you are very obviously not a leader. So I don't have any confidence in him either. I don't think the constituency should either.
Well, and there's also been some issues with the way that he trains his employees. Like I've seen different things in different articles where, deputies would be instructed to like rush into a public building to apprehend an active shooter, but then wait for SWAT teams when gunmen are barricaded in houses. So it's like really kind of off the wall, different. It doesn't seem consistent. And you have to remember that, when you're in that kind of leadership, lives are at stake. I mean, we have to have consistent training just in what I do for a living. And that's just watching people shoot guns. Mm-hmm. It has nothing to do, I mean, lives could potentially be at stake if there was an accident that happened, but this isn't daily force on force. And so this guy just has, and I'm glad that it's coming to light that this guy has a really, really bad reputation from a leadership perspective. And we've got to get those people out of there and replace them with people that know what they're doing.
Yeah. And I will say that I've heard a lot of different stories and grumblings and things like that about the people beneath him talking about what a horrible leader he is. And I think we've seen that a lot. Now, I love to play devil's advocate. And it actually mentions this here in the article, that this is just a union ploy to work on getting raises for deputies and basically to help with the negotiations and their upcoming salary stuff that is coming. And it even mentions that in the letters that the union membership is sending out, that union audits show that Israel had returned hundreds of millions of dollars to the county that could have been used for deputy salary increases, training, healthcare, crime lab upgrades, and safety equipment, which could kind of tell you that the union and its members are a little bit bitter about those things as well. But from, a leadership standpoint in the local government, I'm sure that they absolutely love Scott Israel. So do you think it's just, maybe some sour grapes from the union to prepare for some salary negotiations? Or do you think that he really is as incompetent as everyone thinks he is?
I'm not super on board with unions anyway.
Same.
So I would say that maybe maybe the union is trying to blow it out of proportion. But from my perspective, the evidence of lack of leadership comes straight from seeing interviews with that guy, straight from seeing interviews with Israel, straight from hearing it from his mouth about how he refuses to take any kind of responsibility for this. And that bothers me. So if we were just basing it on that, I'm out. I'm solid out on him. Yeah. Solid out.
Bill, anything to wrap this one up?
At least from my perspective, since I didn't become aware of him until the Broward County incident. But if I have to use everything about how that was handled as an audit against him and his department, he failed. And there's no two ways about that. You have deputies listening to gunfire, sitting outside behind their squad cars. You have a SWAT team from another county or another city, as I understand it, within a very short distance that should have been called in immediately to deal with the threat. There were so many times the ball was dropped here that everything about how this was handled was wrong. So if that is the incident I have to use to gauge him as a leader, he failed. And if the union is upset about their raises and everything else, that doesn't necessarily mean they're wrong. They might just have an ulterior motive.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. All right. Good stuff, guys. It is time to talk about Coolergate 2018.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Jerah and I have been
man.
with on this already a little bit today. So let me just set it up for the people who may not be familiar, who may be living under a rock right at this point in time. So earlier this last week, or I guess this happened at the very beginning of April, but basically Yeti, the cooler company, I guess is what they do. I don't really know. I don't know any. They sent a bunch of letters that basically ended a vendor program. The NRA was one of the recipients of said letter. The NRA ILA put out a broadcast, a Florida alert, written by Marion P. Hammer, former NRA president and current leader of the Florida lobbying arm of the NRA. I'm not sure exactly what that relationship is, but definitely still involved in the NRA. An NRA board member, in fact, that has not attended one board meeting since 2015. All right, so that'll do with my character assassination while I set up the story. She sent out this alert saying that Yeti doesn't support the Second Amendment, that it wasn't sportsmanlike, that they refused to do business with the National Rifle Association, and that basically they were just evil and hate the 2A and the community and everything and all about it. So this set off an entire internet uprising against Yeti, which culminated in people blowing up their Yetis with tannerite. Oh, I guess I have to say binary explosive. We're not allowed to say tannerite anymore. Blowing up their Yetis and making tons of virtue signaling just to show support for the NRA and the Second Amendment and things like that. Yesterday or the day before, Yeti put out a statement saying, look, we ended a vendor program that a lot of people took part in, which is basically a customization and discount program where other companies and vendors could order stuff for discounted rates. They said that they canceled existing orders and that they offered a new vendor style program for customization and discounts as well. So they ended an old program and gave them the opportunity to participate in a new program. Well, the NRA then doubled down and posted a bunch of stuff on social media talking about how Yeti doesn't support the Second Amendment. And then the letter started circulating from Yeti to the vendors that were part of that program, which basically confirmed what Yeti was saying and made the NRA to look like a bunch of liars. I do understand that this is basically Marion Hammer, but I assume that she's not acting in a vacuum and that other people there know about this and are encouraging this kind of behavior. But man, Bill, I'm going to start with you real quick. What are your thoughts?
My most immediate thought, and it's the one I voiced on my own podcast when we talked about this, was playing devil's advocate for just a moment and assuming everything Yeti is saying is true and everything the NRA is saying is BS. The timing is awfully convenient for this sudden cessation of a vendor program.
Sure.
And no one can debate that. The timing is very, very convenient if there was some ulterior motive here. Not having seen the letter you're referencing, I can't make any determinations. I could probably produce a very similar one on my word processor here at home in about 30 seconds if I felt the urge to. So
without question.
I guess my whole point of view is on this whole thing, it's if the NRA made themselves look like complete idiots in the process, they've done it before. So I'm not, I know y'all are supporters of the NRA. I have my issues with them. I have for years. But
well, you're not the only one. Don't assume because I'm here that I'm just like rah.
Yeah,
okay?
I understand. Let me put it this way. I've had issues with the NRA before. I've had issues for a variety of reasons with them. And if this is one more in a series of them making themselves look like idiots, par for the course. On the other hand, if this is Yeti playing Dick's and Walmart and Citibank politics, you got
for a second.
I was like, great, Phil. Now.
No, the sporting goods store, Dick's.
Thank you.
Not in any other context was that meant, although it is a double entendre if you think about it.
Yeah.
But Kenny Ortega is reaching for the mute button right now.
He's freaking out so bad. I'm sorry, Kenny.
Nope, none of that needs to be bleeped.
Anyway, but if they're playing politics and they got their hands stuck in the cookie jar, good for them. But I don't think there's any way for us to objectively figure out at this point who's full of it, unless they both are.
Yeah, let me remind everybody that in January, Marion P. Hammer wrote an article in Ammoland, basically making herself to be a hero in basically the takeover that cemented power for Wayne LaPierre and Chris Cox in the NRA. 2 decades ago?
That's not a resume I brag about.
No, absolutely not. And basically calling some of the new people that were trying to get elected to the NRA, such as Adam Kraut, the enemy within. She didn't say Adam Kraut by name, but everyone knew exactly who she was talking about and said that they were trying to rabble rouse and take over the NRA from the inside. And
sidebar, I would crawl over a mile of broken glass to see Adam Kraut, president of the NRA. Or go dig Charlton Heston back up and reanimate his corpse, and I'll take him. Either one, fine.
All right, love it. So, Jerah, now let's hear your opinion here.
I have so many questions. And we'll start with this one. How did this hag get such a cool name? I want this name.
Yeah, but don't forget, she has to run for the board of directors next year, and we're going to start #BanHammer 2019.
Okay, I still think it's almost like a superhero name, and I'm a little jealous, if I'm honest. Second question. Here's the deal. Why would she go after Yeti so hard on behalf of the NRA with such lax board member participation? I don't understand the thought behind that. I mean, did she buy a Yeti that came to her house with like a dead rat in it or something? Like, did she? I mean, I don't understand. I don't get it. Yeah. Now, on the flip side of that, when Yeti released their statement, they said, we did away with this vendor program, and it had a multitude of companies in it, including the NRA. Who are the other companies? I don't find a list anywhere.
Yellow Quail was the one that I've seen. But yeah, there's no list available that I've seen.
Are they all 2A companies? Are they all, outdoors companies? I mean, that would be something to note.
But I think
but I can't find a list.
No, I agree. But I think that is a little bit of a straw man argument, just because they're vendors that want Yetis. So I think it's fair to assume that a majority of those are going to be kind of outdoor type companies, right?
Probably so. I really feel like I really want to know what the alternative motive is, or the agenda is here, because I really feel like she did a really great job of taking advantage of the sheeple, because there's sheeple on both sides, right? Left and right. Sure. And she did a really great job of taking advantage of people who don't research and people who don't read. And now it's trickling down. And, and then of course, Arctic came out on their social media like 2 days later and threw out that whole well-regulated militia post, which is completely bull crap, because, I went through their posts for like the last year, and they've never posted anything Second Amendment before.
It's an advantage of a stumble by their competitor for sure.
And I would have been all over it myself. I'm just saying that I think that there's a lack of companies that are willing to put their balls on the line for Second Amendment. And now we have these companies that are all coming out of the woodwork like, I love guns, we love guns, we're so 2A, just watering the tree of liberty with the blood of patriots all day long, over this stumbling block. So I don't really know what to think about this. I own a Yeti, but I own an Arctic, I own a Bison. I don't really give a crap as long as it keeps my damn beer cold.
Yeah, no, I agree. I don't have any Yeti products. Well, I do have some that we got for free at SHOT Show 2018 because Yeti was sponsoring part of the industry day at the range. So they gave us a bunch of Yeti cups for free. So, I've definitely seen them in the 2A community before. But yeah,
I'm just saying that at the end of the day, I think that this is just a bunch of hot air. And the more that I read about this Marion Hammer, she just smells like vinegar. I don't get it.
No, I totally agree. When she was in January, I pretty much had all I ever wanted to hear from her. And I want to be 100% clear. I don't think that she has never done anything good for 2A in the United States, because I think she has done some good. But I think she's part of the old guard, part of that old system, part of the NRA that I do not believe represents me and my interests going into the future. And I think that that's the part of the NRA that we need to get rid of. I also want to say that I'm still a member of the NRA, and here's why. Because my NRA member dues go to range subsidization, instructor education, child education, subsidization of school programs, and all these other great things. that I really want my money to go towards. I do not contribute to the NRA ILA, and I probably never will again, just because I do not believe that branch of the NRA, that just the one that's run by Ackerman McQueen, the one that is just constantly slamming us with, if you don't join the NRA, they're going to take your guns kind of marketing messages. That's completely separate from my membership with the NRA. And I know it's hard to sometimes justify being a member of one, knowing that the other one is over there just raising hell. But yeah, it's a very slippery edge for me right now. And the more they let Marion Hammer talk, the less I want to be any part of that organization.
Well, she also strikes me as someone, I've been doing basically nothing but reading about her and moving into my new place this week. And she strikes me as someone who enjoys taking credit for things just because she has a vagina. And I have a big problem with that. Okay. And it kind of goes hand in hand with, well, we have to unite because we're women, and you have to support me because I'm a woman. And just because we have the same genitalia doesn't mean that we have to be together on things. We have to be free thinkers, and we can believe in different things. And she just strikes me as somebody who does that, and it irks me.
No, I totally understand. All right. So I think there's a ton of questions here. I think we all still have some questions, and I hope that we can get a little bit of closure. But I will say that NRA is not only doubled down, but tripled down now on their character assassination of Yeti, whether it's deserved or undeserved. I hope we find out very soon.
Well, they're committed. They got to be committed now.
Yeah, I guess at this point. But man, it's really making it tough for me. There's a lot of companies that have gotten rid of relationships with Yeti, including one there in Texas that you know of, right, Jerah?
Yeah, it's the company I used to work for, and I'm not really sure I agree with it. But I haven't had a chance to talk with the director of marketing yet as to the reasons behind that. So,
gotcha.
Not my decision to make.
Gotcha. Very cool. All right, let's move on. I've had enough of Cooler Gate 2018. Let's go to the next story, which is study shows civilians using tourniquets reduces mortality rate 6-fold. This comes to us from trauma-news.com. And I'm a big proponent of medical training. I think it's huge. I think that we saw this huge push for CPR certification and things like that. And while CPR does save lives, I think that a lot more people bleed to death than are administered CPR from civilians and things like that. So I definitely want to see more of that. This study, which is called Civilian Pre-Hospital Tourniquet Use is Associated with Improved Survival in Patients with Peripheral Vascular Injury, was published in the Journal of the American College of Surgeons, and basically said they evaluated 1,026 patients with vascular injuries of the arms or legs admitted to 11 urban level 1 trauma centers in Texas from 2011 to 2016. A pre-hospital tourniquet was used in 17.6% of the cases, and although the use varied widely among individual centers, ranging from 62% to 1.4%. So, tourniquets work. Tourniquets save lives. I think we all agree on that, but it's great to see the actual data that says that. And what do you guys think about, pushing medical in civilian use?
It's so popular right now. It really is, and it should be. Working in a facility where guns are used every day, we rolled out medical classes, and they've just been so very well attended. And with good use. I mean, if I'm honest, tourniquet, the feel of a tourniquet on my body makes me want to yak because I had to go back and renew my CPR certification like a month and a half ago. And I hate the way that it feels, but you have to go through it and you have to learn how to use it. And having that as part of your training, if any gun range owners are listening right now, having that as quarterly training is just a must. Because those are some of the most common injuries. Knives are, of course, becoming more prevalent in the news. Knife injuries, and that on top of the sucking chest wounds and all that kind of stuff. You just get so much good knowledge that you can put it to use in everyday life. That I'm total fangirl of this. I love it.
Totally, Phil.
Well, the two things that are on my mind are, first of all, I am a huge proponent of tourniquets for civilian use. Because it's like I explained to people, tourniquets are not a be-all, end-all solution to all problems. If you have a wound to the abdomen or the head, especially head wounds, tourniquets and head wounds don't match well for obvious reasons.
If you tourniquet a neck, the head wound isn't such a concern.
Yeah, but that makes other problems. So her tourniquets and head wounds are not a good idea.
Okay.
But like I explained to people, if you have a severe wound to an arm or a leg, tourniquets are a lifesaver. And the thing about tourniquets is, I was taught how to use one as a 17-year-old private that didn't know my butt from a hole in the ground. You can teach somebody how to use one in about 5 minutes. They're really simple devices and they work. And I mean, it's, you know, a lot of the old dogma surrounding tourniquets about how you only put them on as a last resort, or you have to release them every so often so you don't get blood toxicity in the limbs. A lot of that's been overturned and disproven. You strap it on, you crank it down, you stop the bleeding, you leave it on, and let the emergency room techs deal with it. And that is easy to teach, and it can save lives. The other thing I point out, you know, Jerah, to your point, was not just for range owners or range officers, but I'm going to tell you that if you're a high volume shooter, you should have a tourniquet in your bag. For real. Yeah, and IFAC all day long. Yeah. I every time I go to the gun range, I have IFACs that stay in my vehicles in case of a car accident. And I have a larger, better stock one with like chest seals and the whole 9 yards in it that stays on my plate carrier for home defense. That thing comes off the plate carrier and goes in the range bag and goes to the range with me, because if I wind up shot, because I'm surrounded by people with guns, it might happen. Or if somebody else gets shot, I don't have to wait for the range officer to go fumble with the first aid kit. I've got tourniquets and quick clot and everything in the bag on my side that I can go and deal with the problem immediately. So, I mean, put that in your head. If you commute, you should have something in your vehicle. It doesn't have to be a lot, but a little bit of medical gear in the event of a roadside accident can be a lifesaver. If you're a high volume shooter, you should have one in your range bag. And it goes without saying, if you're an instructor, range officer, or a range owner, you should have medical training. You should have the gear.
Oh, absolutely. And we've, some of the ranges that I've consulted at, that's a point that I bring up is, making that part of your safety brief is, telling people where your first aid kits are, telling people where your tourniquets are, nearest hospital. All that stuff is just a part of, you just have to hammer it home and hammer it home and hammer it home, so that they get it in their heads, what to do in case of an emergency, because you never know when it's going to happen.
Yeah. Totally agree. And like you said, Jerah, medical is so like hot right now. It's so the in thing. And I'm so happy to see that. I taught over 20 classes in 12 states last year. In 2017, taught hundreds of people how to run through, and treat massive hemorrhage, airway, respiration, circulation, and hypothermia. And I love to see it. It's one of the most rewarding things that I do. And look, people, there's tons of classes, tons of people teaching it. Find one, take one, and you just never know what's going to happen. You could use it very, very soon. Next story, you don't need a gun, call 911. Houston 911 operator sentenced to 10 days in jail for hanging up on callers. Good. But I thought that there was a really funny quote for this. Emergency caller Jim Moten called 911 in 2016 after he spotted two vehicles speeding on a highway where people had been killed from speeding weeks earlier and thought his call had dropped after a few seconds. Court documents stated that this dispatcher had taken the call, and before he could even finish explaining his emergency, said, "Ain't nobody got time for this, for real," and then hung up on him. What? Yeah. So anyway, she's gonna do jail time. Her attorney said she was going through a hard time in her life, and I'm like, okay, well, don't care. You may have caused people their life. Thoughts?
I don't think 10 days is appropriate for something like this. Honestly, not enough. And honestly, it would not be rocket surgery to go back through her call logs and find all the calls she dropped and find out if any of those people were seriously injured and or killed as a result of their calls being ignored.
Yeah,
because the way I see it is, if there's a single injury, if somebody had an ingrown toenail knocked out of place because of this woman's actions, then start laying the charges on her.
Oh, put
her away as long as you can.
Yeah, no, it opens up for tons of civil lawsuits as well. She's criminally been found guilty now and doing jail time. So now it's just a matter of anyone who may have been affected by her getting those civil suits going for sure.
Yeah, but
I think this is about a little bit about perspective too. And how many doctors, how many surgeons at hospitals have crap going on in their life and they have to go and cut on people's spines and take out their organs. Okay. Sometimes you just have to suck it up and prioritize things. Okay. Especially when you have a job where people's lives are in your hands. Like what an irresponsible prick. Like I'm in shock right now. I'm in shock and awe.
I totally agree. I'm just like, what's going on?
And let this also serve as the poster child for abdicating your responsibility to defend yourself to the state.
Yes, and that is exactly. We'll just call the police. Okay, well, the dispatcher's hanging up on people, so I'm just going to carry my gun.
Negative, Ghost Rider.
The pattern's full.
I tell everybody all the time, when you talk to me about gun control, when you post a police officer in a tent in my front yard, then we can talk about gun control. Until then, I'm going to keep mine.
Totally agree.
Ain't nobody got time for that.
All right. Guys, so we're going to move into some negative news now.
That wasn't negative?
Well, no, I mean, because she's doing jail time, so I think that's positive.
Oh, okay.
But we've had some officers, 2 Florida deputies killed while eating lunch. Gunman then took his own life. So they were just eating in a Chinese restaurant. Guy walked into the restaurant, killed both of them at point blank range, walked out to his car and killed himself. No explanation, no reasons, nothing, just random acts of violence against police. The next one, 2 Dallas cops shot at a Home Depot. I think, Jerah, this is actually probably pretty close to home to you, being in the same city. I think that there's just this general feeling, this general wave going through the United States that cops are bad, especially in urban areas, things like that. That cops are out there to get you. They're not out there to help you. And I think that this, and honestly, like, I don't like to say stuff like this, but I think that this kind of started when Barack Obama was our president, when he talked about some of the things and kind of incited a little bit of that racial tension amongst officers or towards officers. We are reaping the seeds. We are reaping the crops that were sown during that time. What do you guys think?
I will tell you that. I've been moving this week. And so the 2 places that I really needed to go were IKEA and Home Depot. And both of them had shootouts this week in the DFW area. So needless to say, a lot of my crap isn't getting done right now.
Yeah, no
problem. But the complete lack of respect for this authority, because people, and I blame the media. I blame them every day of my life. I'm sorry, but they can suck it. Okay. Because they have had a huge part in inciting this, and it's terrible. I mean, you're talking about I get it that sometimes cops mess up, but it is literally the smallest percentage ever in the grand scheme of things. And the media just inflates it and fuels that fire. And I'm so tired of it. I'm so sick of it. And now what we have because of that, and because of what you just mentioned, is just an onslaught of police shootings. And it's not fair, and it sucks. And it makes me so angry. It makes me so angry for these families. It makes me so angry for these departments that have to deal with this. It makes me angry for their recruiting, because now who wants to be a cop now?
Yeah.
Who wants to be a cop now? And I can't, it makes me so angry that I even have a hard time just articulating it right now. So I'm going to let you go until I can get my thoughts together.
No problem. Phil, what do you think?
Well, I'll start off by saying that when I left the military, I briefly considered becoming a law enforcement officer. I passed that career up for personal reasons, but I'm willing to lay a fair amount of this at the feet of the media and a fair amount of this at the feet of Barack Obama and his administration. But I have to lay a lot of this at the feet of parents, because I've talked to people who take this perception that if you're a certain color or if you're a certain this or the other, cops are out to get you, and they teach their kids this crap. And they grow up from the same age that I grew up being told, respect an officer, do what he says, the time to fight him is not on the side of the road, you have your day in court. These other people are told cops are going to kill you because of the color of your skin. And they're taught that at a young age. And they grow up, and once you kind of have that in your mind, everything you see reinforces that bias. Because you've already, you've already gotten in your lane and made up your mind that this is the way it is. And your mind cherry picks the information that agrees with what you already believe. But I lay a lot of this at the feet of parents. I have to. I lay a lot of this at the feet of media. But the other thing I have to point out is I have to point this out to law enforcement officers themselves, because I have a lot of friends and family that are law enforcement. And every one of them has said the same thing. They never leave home without either their duty weapon or backup weapon. They never take their eyes off the entrances or exits of the place they're at. They are always on guard, because this kind of thing happens.
And what do I live? I mean,
you remember how I said there were reasons why I didn't pursue that profession? That was one of them.
I didn't pursue it because I am an absolutely angry individual. And if you give me any sass, I will tase you in the face. You don't want the speeding ticket? Well, too bad. Okay. I just know that I have absolutely zero patience and zero ability to tolerate stupidity and sass. Okay. That's why I didn't do it. I went out for the Frisco Police Department when I was 23, and I figured out really quick that I wasn't cut out for it. Okay. So rather than get myself in trouble, I just decided to move on with my life and do something different. But this whole idea of, I could not imagine being the wife of a cop and my husband going out, my best friend Karen and Andy, who are my landlords, he's a cop. I could not imagine. He just got wrecked with a 2x4 the other night, y'all. These people tried to beat the crap out of him with a 2x4. He had just shingles of skin hanging off of his forearms. And I'm like, oh my God, I could not imagine doing this every day of my life. And most of the people that go out there and do it, they do it because they want to protect and they want to serve, and they have to deal with this every day. And there just has to be a change of hearts and minds in this country, and we have to take it back. We just have to take it back.
Oh, there does. And to your point, without naming names, my best friend of 20 years is married to my sister. So my brother-in-law, he makes his living as sheriff's deputy. So, I mean, and I've got uncles and cousins and everything else that are in law enforcement. So this is very close to home for me. And the first thing that goes through my mind is I think about which funeral I have to attend if something like this happens to somebody I know. It's frustrating. But on the other side of trying to fix the society we live in, quite frankly, everybody out there that's a civilian carrier and everybody out there that's in law enforcement, y'all need to keep your eyes peeled, because it's happening. And the only way to stop it is to identify when it happens and put two in the back of the guy's head that's trying to hurt a police officer. There's no other way around it. I mean, I'm not laying any of this at the feet of the gentlemen that were killed. Not a bit. All I'm saying is you see what's happening. Please, for God's sakes, be careful.
Yep. Completely agree. So yeah, when we vilify the police, this is the result in society. I just want, if anyone who is anti-cop hears my voice, that you're getting what you wanted. This is what you're getting because of what you did.
But if anybody out there is anti-cop, just know there's a whole lot of people just like me who count friends, family, co-workers among law enforcement, whether it's active duty or reserve. And there's a lot of people like me that wouldn't hesitate a split second to jump in to help that officer.
Oh yeah, same.
So don't pick that fight if you don't want it.
I got pulled over. Yeah. I got pulled over in Denver by a complete jerk of a cop. Hate that guy. Like total jerk. Still don't want him to die. Know he's out there doing a really, really extremely hard job, and do not think that his behavior reflects on the rest of the police force. I'm pro cop. Like, don't care. Nothing you say is going to change that. I'm pro cop. Even when I have a bad experience with one of them, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter to me at all. It just like I have a bad experience with someone at a 7-Eleven or, a Subway or something like that. Doesn't mean I'm never going to go to Subway again. Just means that if I see that person, I'm, going to make it really hard on them. 9 dead, 16 injured in Toronto van attack. I don't want to spend a ton of time on this, but I do want to say this. When people say that guns are the problem, when people say that if we ban guns, we stop murder, things like this just go to show that that's complete stupidity. We cannot outlaw evil. We cannot outlaw people just snapping and doing ridiculous things. It doesn't matter what the tool is. If they can't find a gun, they will use something else to create their havoc, their chaos, and their evil. And this is a prime example of that. What do you guys think? Look
at how creative they can get in prisons to kill each other.
Yeah.
Okay. That's where you start. And if they can do that as regulated and watched as they are in prisons, and they can still figure out ways to meet in secret or make shanks or drown people in toilet bowls and crap like that. Listen, you're not going to compound law after law after law after law, because somebody has to be there to to make that happen. Somebody has to be there to say, hey, this is a law and we've got to enforce this. And it's been proven time and time again just this year that we can't depend on the FBI. We can't depend on the regulating entities that do their jobs correctly every single time. We live in a sinful world, and we live in a world of human beings and human beings error. So that's all it is. You're right. The only thing that you can know for sure, and the only thing you can take to heart, and the only thing that you can rely on is yourself. That's it.
You totally took the wind right out of my sails and beat me to the point. Well, but it's the same thing I've said before. Prison. I mean, the thing I tell anti-gunners is gun control is impossible. Or making gun violence never happen is impossible. And they, of course, refer back to all these laws and how it prevented this or the other. And I always say there is one example I can think of a 100% secure environment, and it's prison. Because in prison, you have no right to privacy, no right to the Second Amendment. You have no right to free speech. You have no right to anything. You have no right. You have virtually no rights. You're under 100% surveillance. Your behavior is 100% controlled, and yet people still shank each other in prison. So there is no way in this country with our laws, with our constitutional rights, that you can possibly institute the kinds of gun restrictions they want to institute without completely shredding the Bill of Rights and the Constitution. It cannot be done. Because if you can't even stop violence and murder in prison in a 100% secure environment, you cannot stop it here. But I've always argued anti-gunners aren't really concerned about violence. They just want to be anti-gun. But, smoke screen, one thing after the other.
Good stuff, guys. All right. Next up, Waffle House news. Naked gunman kills 4 in Tennessee Waffle House, stopped by patron that wrestled gun away. So this guy was kind of a nutcase. I'm just going to go ahead and say that right now. Basically thought that Taylor Swift was stalking him and hacking his phone. He was arrested by the Secret Service in July 2017 after entering a restricted area near the White House. His gun license in Illinois, his FOID, was revoked. His firearms were taken from him and given to his father. His father returned those firearms. This dude walked into a Waffle House and just opened fire. Awful. But there is a little bit of positive news here. There is a man, Taurine Sanderlin, 29. Oh, I'm sorry. Those are the victims. I apologize. And I will read their names. Taurine Sanderlin, Joe Perez, Aquila Da Silva, and Debony Groves all passed away because this idiot walked into a Waffle House with a firearm. Now, there was a hero here. One of the patrons, I should say, James Shaw Jr., rolled up, took the AR-15 away from him, and stopped it from happening. He got burned by the barrel, and in my opinion, a hero. Then he went home as if stopping this guy from killing a bunch more people wasn't enough. He started a GoFundMe for the victims that died and their families. So really, really good guy. James Shaw Jr. had that warrior mindset, stopped something before it could be even worse. What do you guys think?
I've gone first a lot. You can go.
Phil, you're up.
First of all, it's very obvious this man was insane because everyone knows that Taylor Swift only has eyes for Zayn.
You know what?
But on a serious note, when this came out, the very first thing I did was post it to my page and say, counting down the seconds until someone says this is a gun issue and not drugs or mental illness. Because who walks into a Waffle House butt naked with an AR-15?
Okay, now look, I was young. And
okay,
I would have expected it from you, but also take note that all the laws were followed, right? His gun license was revoked, his firearms were confiscated, he was arrested, and yet somehow, miraculously, he was able to get his hands on another firearm and walk into a Waffle House in his birthday suit and kill 4 people.
No, Jerah, his father gave him those confiscated rifles back.
Oh, I thought you said he turned them in.
It gets better, though, because I haven't been able to confirm it, but somebody told me that his father is an FFL.
Oh, my God.
I can't confirm that.
Shut up.
I haven't. Now, I'm saying that is hearsay because I haven't been able to confirm it, but somebody told me that, and I was like, wouldn't that add a whole nother layer on top of this thing if that were true? But regardless,
what an idiot.
But regardless if he is or not, if it's my kid and they get, first of all, you have to understand that the reason this young man was arrested in the first place is because he was in a secure area of the White House attempting to have a meeting with President Trump. If this was my kid, I'm going to assume they're imbalanced based on that behavior. And I'm not going to give them access to a gun because I don't know. I have common sense.
Yeah. Apparently this dad was like, love your tenacity, son.
Apparently mental illness and bad decisions might be a genetic trait.
Yeah.
I don't know. All I know about this whole situation is, this kid was obviously he was a few fries short of a Happy Meal. And if anybody argues that point with me, he walked into Waffle House naked with an AR-15 to shoot the place up. That's not normal behavior.
No, I mean, and look, if you want to walk into a Waffle House naked with an AR-15 and it's legal in your area, like, do that. That's fine. I don't have any problem with that. It's the opening fire on innocent people that I have a problem with. And look, I always try to look at every story from both angles. I'm like, yeah, his dad is
other angles.
I'm like, his dad is a complete piece of human garbage. And then I'm like, well, wait, okay, so this is his son. I've got sons. Okay, they made a mistake. Well, if they tried to break into the White House to have a meeting with Trump and thought that Taylor Swift was stalking them, would I give them a firearm? And then I come up with the answer of no. So there's no way that I can actually see that his dad is not a human piece of garbage. But I guess we'll have to just wait until more reporting is done. But I do want to say again, James Shaw Jr., 29 years old, warrior mindset, badass guy.
Yep, badass. That's the best
I want to be
thing.
friends. I want to be friends with him. I want to be friends with him.
Same here. Hey guys, Washington D.C. may allow 16-year-olds to vote in the 2020 election.
Shut your mouth.
I mean, I can't. It's a podcast. I have to keep talking.
Sean, this is
Sean,
terrible.
Wait a second. You're telling me the Tide Pod eating condom sniffers are gonna get to vote, but they can't but they can't be trusted with a rifle until they're 21 years old.
Hey, but hey,
that's what we're saying now. We're saying that it's less dangerous for a person to have. It's less dangerous for a person to have a say in how our freaking government runs than it is to have a freaking rifle. That's what we're saying now.
They're also eating ramen noodles out of the toilet.
I mean, ramen's pretty good.
Can we? Okay. I said the same thing last time, Sean. How bad would it be if I suggested that we should just chemically neuter certain people? It's not that I think they should die. I'm not that inhuman, but I just really don't think they should be allowed to have kids because I want my kid to have smart people to breed with, and I'm really concerned to have stupid grandkids if this continues.
This furthers my theory on IQ-based sterilization.
I guess.
You know what?
Okay.
I never thought I'd agree with Chinese communists, but I'm starting to see that.
I'm telling you right now. I'm telling you, it's right there. You know what? Here's the deal. It goes back to your comment on laying it at the feet of parents. Okay. We have a parental generation who has produced willingly a bunch of effing softies. Okay, that can't be trusted with adult things. You don't get to play with the adult things. You don't get to do the adult things because you're just not ready. You're not ready. And so if we're going to do what we need to do until this generation dies, okay, is just up their age to everything. You can't do squat till you're 30. Okay, you can't do anything until you're 30. Okay, you have to be babysat and handheld and butt wiped until you're 30 years old because I have no faith in this generation outside of awesome technology.
and to further the point, I actually blame one other group of people, and that's sport hunters. Because hear me out though. This might sound a little nuts, but hear me out. Let me get my issue out. For decades, we allowed sport hunters to hunt every freaking apex predator on the planet, and in a population of any kind of critter in any ecosystem, if you don't have an apex predator to eat the stupid slow ones, they overbreed and the breed, the bloodline becomes weaker over time. Well, when we killed off all of our own apex predators, this is what we got. We need something to come along and eat the slow ones. Desperately. Like I think that's the fair way to do it. Like if you're the kind of person that thinks it's perfectly acceptable to eat Tide Pods, eat ramen out of a toilet, and snort condoms, you should probably be eaten.
All right. I'm down with that. So they say we work, we pay taxes, we care for family members, we can drive, we can do so many other things. So adding voting onto that isn't going to be that big of a responsibility. We can handle it. And it's not unprecedented. 1971, we passed the 26th Amendment that allowed 18-year-olds to vote because they were like, if we can go to war and die for our country, we should be able to, shape the future of our country. I'm sure that back then there was a lot of dumb stuff that the kids did too.
Whoa. Okay. Whoa. The 18-year-olds, what year did you say that passed?
71.
Okay, listen. The 18-year-olds of the 70s and the 60s and the 50s, okay, the D-Day 18-year-olds too are way different than the 18-year-olds of today, okay? Piddling messes. I don't even want to hear that crap. I'm not going to listen to it. I'm not going to have some 16-year-olds sit across the table from me and tell me that they should get to vote and shape the future. Shut up. Shut up. You're going to start a revolution. Your generation can't even start a lawnmower, okay? I am done. I am done talking about this crap with these people.
I love it. I absolutely love it. So Phil, I owe you an apology. When I go through the stories, I always look at who my panelists are going to be, and then I pick stories that I think are relevant. In this case, I picked stories that I thought would break your spirit.
No, because I'm much snarkier and more angry than I was last time. So no, it's not going to break me.
You're breaking my spirit.
No, last time Sean shattered me. Like by the end of the podcast, I was just laying my head on the desk, shaking my head. Couldn't do it anymore.
Totally. It was amazing. All right, guys, it's time for the I'm Offended segment. I've got 3 stories, all having to do with schools. I'm going to read them off and then we'll talk about them a little bit. So SRO, School Resource Officer in Florida, stop school shooting, media silent. You guys may not have heard of this. And that's just because, a ton of people didn't die because of awesome action by one of our boys in blue. And you just don't read about it. And it's so aggravating to me. Basically, shooting happened Friday morning at Forest High School in Ocala. Suspect was first identified as a student. Later clarification shows that he was not a student. Brought a shotgun into the school, took some shots. The SRO arrived and took the guy down.
How are these people getting long guns into school and nobody's paying attention?
Guitar case.
Shut up.
For real.
Oh my God, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, that works. I know what I'm going to go buy tomorrow. Real good low-key way to carry a firearm.
Well, I have a blog coming out tomorrow about the weapons that I snuck into Spain, but that's a different.
They're very nice. I can't wait to read it. But yeah, I mean, let's see. What was the officer's name? Marion County Sheriff Billy Woods. So Billy, another warrior mindset, saved a lot of people, and I think that is awesome. Next up, pro-gun Parkland student questioned by school security for shooting range outing with his father. This is Kyle Kashuv.
Complete BS. I follow him on Twitter. He's amazing.
Yeah, he's awesome. He's totally for the Second Amendment. He's not as popular as David Pig or whatever his name is, and went to the shooting range. Completely 100% legal. Literally doing everything by the book, exercising his Second Amendment. Then he exercised his First Amendment and posted about it on Facebook. And then when he went to school, he had to go see the principal and a school resource officer because he was a threat of some kind.
Okay.
Yeah, so he went to the range, and then when he went back to school, they questioned him.
So now we're going to start cracking down on some people's Facebook posts. But that guy posted, what was it? The Parkland shooter posted stuff all the time on his Facebook about how he was going to shoot people up.
Yeah, but
didn't he get? What were you going to say?
I was just going to say, yeah, but he was actually, Kyle was just going to the shooting range with his dad and posted a picture.
I know, that's what I'm saying, is they're cracking down on the wrong things. That's perfectly legal. Your parent can take you to the shooting range. That's not illegal. They didn't need to be sticking their nose in that business. But then if you turned around afterwards and said, "Man, I'm going to come get all my schoolmates, come pop cap in your ass tomorrow." I mean, come on.
No, he said he posted a picture of him at the range and said, "A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed." And apparently in this Minority Report world that we live in now, that is a problem.
Yeah, I read this to my wife, who immediately responded. I mean, first of all, she was shocked. She thought there was more to the story I wasn't telling her. I'm like, no, here it is. And after she read the whole thing, she just looked at me and she was like, "I am so glad we don't have to put up with that where we live." Because I live, Southeast Louisiana is a fairly pro-gun area. But the thing I point out to my wife was, I'm like, if I were this kid's father, or if this were my child, I'd already have a lawyer, and I'd currently be skull dragging everybody involved in this incident up and down the street legally.
That entire school administration is on bath salts.
Yeah. But I guess what I'm saying is, I mean, you know, we've talked about parenting a few times, and parents, if y'all are out there, if y'all are pro-gun and your kids are pro-gun and your school administration or whatever is not pro-gun, be on the lookout for this kind of thing, and don't be afraid to raise holy hell about it on social media and put these people on blast, because they need to be made to understand through the consequences of bad press that these kinds of activities towards kids are not going to be tolerated. Like, if my kid's doing something that is a constitutionally protected activity with her parents and she has to hear a word about it from the school administration, I'm going to show the school administration 7 kinds of Army crazy. I can't tolerate that. No one should tolerate this.
Agreed.
It's just ridiculous.
8th grader sues school district for First Amendment violation over a Second Amendment shirt. So he wore a shirt that was basically Gadsden flag, said "Don't tread on me" to a USA, and the school made him change it or take it off or whatever. They had a dress code that does prohibit any obscene language, anything that may be deemed a safety issue, and anything that promotes weapons. The kid has now and his parents have now filed suit, and this is being helped out by the Firearms Policy Coalition. Phil, what are your thoughts here?
Same thing I thought before. Get a lawyer, tear the freaking school administration apart, do whatever you have to do. I mean, and I know I keep saying it, but this cannot be tolerated. This cannot be allowed to stand. If we were talking about the kid posting snorting cocaine and hanging out with strippers on social media, we might have an issue that needs to be addressed. But we're talking about being at a shooting range with your parents in a controlled environment, doing nothing illegal. There's no, or in this case, we're talking about a young man wearing a freaking T-shirt and the school doesn't like it. Well, quite frankly, your right to monitor and amend the behavior of your students has limits. It has to have limits. You are not the parent and you are not the arbiter of all that is right and wrong. And if it's not a disciplinary issue or it's not something directly impacting the child's ability to get an education, then get over it.
Jerah, what do you think?
I bet if he was wearing a T-shirt that said #ProudTranny, we wouldn't have a problem.
You know, and that's an excellent. I was just thinking, what if he was wearing a T-shirt with, you know, a pig with lipstick on and said, "Let's go hogging."
Yeah, I mean, it's yeah, I think that there's such an overreach in schools nowadays on things that aren't relevant, and such an underreach in things that are relevant. You know, in my school, you know, and it wasn't so long ago that I was in school. I mean, we had guns in the parking lot. We hunted before and after school. It was never an issue. But we were held accountable. You know, now our administration had a lot of parental rights on us. I mean, we still had corporal punishment when I was in school, and you were held accountable for the things that you did. And I think that it's just it's so flawed now and so different. And once again, it's because we are catering to what these teenagers feel like they deserve. And they don't deserve squat. Nothing.
I mean, this is the reason that you know, school dress codes, school uniforms kind of exist, is to avoid things like this. And yes, it is a First Amendment issue, but I do think that obviously in a school, you've got so many different possible things that a kid could wear that could be disruptive in some way.
But Sean, on the flip side of that, when you allow the lowest common denominator to dictate what is disruptive, then nothing is okay and everything is off limits. That's my problem here. He was not wearing a shirt depicting anything outwardly offensive, nudity, you know, drugs, anything like that. He was wearing
it was history.
Shirt. Yeah, he was wearing a shirt with a flag on it. And quite frankly, if one tender-footed snowflake gets their feelings hurt by that, then tell that one tender-foot snowflake to cram it, sit down, and shut up. And that experience will be more instructional for them in the long run than patting them on the head and telling them your opinion matters will make them take the shirt off. No, you do not get to dictate to other people what their behavior will be when it doesn't directly harm you.
You're here to learn.
Kids need to be told to sit down and shut up.
Yeah, you're here to learn. You're not here to critique somebody else's wardrobe. You know?
And if the complaint did not originate with a child, if it originated with an adult, then double shame on you, because you should have been told the same thing when you were a kid. Sit down, shut up, and mind your business.
All right. That's fair, guys. That'll do it for the I'm Offended segment. In the full auto news segment, Phil has one that he would like to talk about. This story is that the real media won't talk about and other crazy stuff. Phil, what'd you have for us?
I latched onto NYPD seized over 60 guns and an unprecedented, I love that word, 50,000 rounds of ammunition.
That's it?
That was exactly what I told Sean.
That's it?
I mean, literally, I know people who are not plotting to overthrow the government. They're not lunatics. They're enthusiastic sport shooters and competitive shooters that could burn 50,000 rounds of ammunition in a short amount of time. Mm-hmm. So on the face of it, I find this hilarious. But when you look further and further into this, I mean, you mean to tell me that in New York, in one of the states with some of the heaviest gun regulations there is, that this man had all of these illegal, in air quotes, firearms, all these unregistered firearms, all these firearms that broke the state laws, and nobody knew about it. He had 50
now. I mean,
well, he does. They do now. But the other thing I want to point out about the story, I think the thing that I take away from this is everybody's heard the saying that there's so many million guns in circulation, so many rounds of ammunition. If gun owners were the problem, you know it by now. If this guy was the problem with all these firearms and 50,000 rounds of ammunition, NYPD wouldn't have punted his door in and, seized these firearms. You'd have known about it.
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing. They did get a tip about illegal weapons, so that's why they went in with a search warrant. They did find exactly what they were looking for. We all think it's ridiculous. I don't think this is an unprecedented amount of ammo. I've got more guns than that I lost in a boating accident, but I just the whole thing is a little bit ridiculous. And look, we constantly talk about, okay, cool. Well, now they're saying that we have to turn in our magazines or whatever like that, and we're gonna promote some civil disobedience, and that's great. But this is the result of that civil disobedience, and I don't think a lot of people actually realize that this guy has a staggering 110 weapons violations, mostly for criminal possession, after they searched his home. So now he's facing a huge amount of jail time for this little bit of civil disobedience. Hold
on. Now I'm going to play devil's advocate.
Perfect.
This is in New York, right?
It is.
Okay. So if that's the law and you're a law-abiding citizen, I mean, does he not kind of deserve what he gets with this? Would not it have been cheaper to move to Texas?
It would have been, yeah. And
I mean, hell, he would have even gotten a pay raise.
Yeah. I'm not saying he deserves what he gets, but he broke the law. He flaunted the law. He got caught, and this is what happens.
Well, but I see. Okay, I'm going to be more than slightly controversial, but I'm much worse than this on my own podcast, so forgive me. Believe this whole thing, I feel the need to. I would argue that he did not exercise civil disobedience because he allowed himself to be taken into custody.
There you go.
Look, I hear everybody talking about how this was a state law, he broke it, this, and the other, but let's call it what it is. He allowed himself to be taken into custody and all these firearms be seized. That is not my definition of civil disobedience. And furthermore, the state has no right to regulate firearms because that is clearly laid out in the 2nd and the 10th Amendment. So any law the state passes to remove firearms from a person's possession that are not otherwise being used in the commission of a crime, that law is unconstitutional. Whether or not the SCOTUS or the federal government wants to recognize that point doesn't have an impact on the fact that it's not legal. And Thomas Jefferson, everybody should know by now what Thomas Jefferson said.
Yes, I agree. Great points on all of it, guys. I think at the end, ultimately, he is absolutely looking at a lot of court and possibly prison in the future. And I think that sucks, but that's the way the cookie crumbles.
I mean, I think he made his own bed, but with in his head, he was thinking, when tyranny becomes law, rebellion becomes duty, and he in his mind was facing kind of a somewhat tyrannical situation by not being able to have firearms that he wanted to have, which he should be able to have if he's a law-abiding citizen. But 110 counts, is that what you said?
Yeah.
Of illegal possession?
110 total counts. Some of them are illegal possession, but yeah, I mean, it's awful. Like it's over.
Now, is that all because of this seizure, or is that in the past?
All because of this seizure.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, if that's in the past, then God, he's messed up.
Yeah, it's
move or deal with it.
But see,
or advocate for something different,
Well, but I disagree that move is even an option, because what would we as gun owners say, especially people like me that are very outspoken Second Amendment advocates, say if the federal government passed a law saying they're all banned, turn them in? Where do you move? What do you do?
Sean and I had a very spirited debate on Facebook about this the other day.
Okay. Well, but I guess my point is,
and I said revolution.
Well. But then why do we change our talking point when it's a state that does this? Because to my point of view, if a state does it or the federal government does it, it's irrelevant.
At the end of it, I said, or advocate for a change in the law. I mean, sometimes you want to take the easy way out. I'm not saying we should move every time that a silly law is passed. But what I am saying is that partly he made his own bed by breaking the law.
I don't believe he broke a law if it wasn't constitutional to begin with, but that's me. I'm the professional Rabalais.
I wouldn't live in New York to begin with, but that's me.
I wouldn't. You couldn't pay me enough to live in New York. Personally, I'd rather be dirt poor in Louisiana and be happy with it.
Good discussion, guys. I appreciate it. Let's wrap this thing up. Jerah, where can people find you online?
At Clearing the Chamber on Facebook, clearingthechamber.com, and on Instagram at Clearing the Chamber.
Very cool. And Empowered, tell us what that is again.
Empowered is an advocacy program promoting campus carry, especially with women, and also self-defense, situational awareness, and non-lethal weapons training for underclassmen.
I love it. Thank you so much for being here and clicking that pin in my ear.
Oh, sorry. Nervous habit.
No, I totally appreciate you being here. It's been awesome. Clearingthechamber.com. And Phil, where can we find you?
I'll be at an NSA holding facility next week, so y'all can find me there.
You will.
No, mofpodcast.com. You can find us on Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook at Matter of Facts Podcast. Come and find us. And if by now I haven't scared all of y'all off, I mean, we're very spirited Second Amendment advocates. We are small government advocates. We're big into prepping and politics. It's not just a gun show; it's a variety show. My co-host and I pretty much dig into anything that piques our interest, which is usually guns.
All right. I absolutely love it. Thank you guys for being here. Thanks to everybody for listening. Don't forget to check out our sponsors, Patriot Patch Company. Go to patriotpatch.co. Get the Patch of the Month Club, t-shirts, cleaning mats, all kinds of other cool stuff there. And Manticore Arms, couldn't do it without them. Absolutely appreciate them. Go buy a transformer rail, or they've even got their 15-inch M-Lock rails now that were built on that transformer rail profile. Anyone who has seen the transformer rail has loved it that I've ever seen. So go check that out. ManticoreArms.com. Coupon code is TWG10. And leave us reviews on iTunes. We truly appreciate that. I haven't been preaching the iTunes reviews for a while until we got the show kind of back up and under its own steam after Jake transferred ownership of the network to me. I think things are going great, and I hope you do too. Leave us a review, send us emails, whatever you want to do. You can do all that at firearmsradio.tv or just search for This Week in Guns in iTunes. Check us out online. There's all kinds of stuff, all kinds of fun stuff. We've got tons of stuff coming up at the NRA annual meetings. We're doing lots of meet and greets all over the place. A lot of hosts from other shows will be there. Definitely going to be a blast. Can't wait to see you there. And don't forget that This Week in Guns is produced by Kenny Ortega and is a production of the Firearms Radio Network. We'll catch you next time.